Rogu is easily one of the most divisive characters in American Dad. To some, he's adorable and funny, and to others, he's annoying and pointless.
You got Rogu'd.
And I'm not over-exaggerating, there's so many Rogu hate posts out there on Reddit. So why does this little guy spark so many polarizing opinions? To get to the bottom of this, I went back and watched every single episode that he appears in, and here's what I found. So, Rogu made his first debut appearance in season 15's Persona Assistant. Here, Roger starts struggling to juggle all of his alter egos, and the stress becomes so overwhelming that he develops a tumour.
Well, on you catch the side flip.
When he comes to, Dr. Calgary has surgically removed the tumour. Oh yeah, and Billy is here too.
Billy, sometimes you just make me so mad.
Now, this is another really contentious character that a lot of fans either love or despise, so let me know if you'd like to see his very own video in the future on this channel. Right, anyway, Roger is still recovering and he asks Stan to cover all of his personas for him. And of course, he completely neglects his duties and the whole city goes to ruin.
Good morning, USA.
Meanwhile, Roger's tumour has grown into a living creature.
I'm sorry, what in the living is that?
Oh, isn't it great? My tumor came to life and now I've got a little homunculus.
Francine's reaction here absolutely cracks me up, because that's pretty much how I felt when watching this. Also, going by what Rogu says here, he's basically Roger's son.
Rogu love daddy.
So, with the whole town in shambles, Stan tries to fix his mess by taking on the persona of Ricky Spanish. And this persona completely takes over Stan and he becomes a loose cannon, and the only one who can stop him is
Sheenie Gold.
Who is, of course, also your sister.
Stan easily takes Roger down, but before he can finish the job, Rogu comes to the rescue. Rogu Spanish. This proved that Rogu isn't just cute, he can also be absolutely savage, cutting Stan's throat, whose side note doesn't die and the red gel is just from his mask, but even still, this episode showed that Rogu can be just as, if not more violent than his daddy. By the end of the episode, we finally get an explanation as to why Rogu came to be.
My body gave me a solution. It sensed I had too much to do, so that's why it gave me Rogu.
And so, Rogu starts taking on some of Roger's personas. When this episode first aired, I don't really think a lot of people knew what to make of Rogu. I mean, he was only in a small portion of the episode, and it wasn't really clear if he was just a one-off character, or if he was going to be a recurring one. At that time, I think most people assumed that he was just a one and done, especially seeing as he didn't appear in the following episode, or even the one after that. In fact, we don't see him again until 9 episodes later, and by then I think mostly everyone had forgotten that he even existed. And it is weird though, because his presence here just isn't really needed. He doesn't do anything, he's just there at the beginning and that's kind of it. And a few episodes later, we get this scene.
What the hell is going on inside you?
Now, I think this basically revealed that when we don't see Rogu, he's just living inside of Roger, and honestly, maybe the writers suddenly realised that they previously introduced this character and had to come up with some kind of reasoning to explain his absence. But yeah, he then appears 4 episodes later in An Irish Goodbye, where we finally got to see a little bit more of his personality.
How'd you like a little sister?
Rogu eat sister.
Only you, Rogu.
And he's integrated even more so into the cast because he also joins in on picking on Klaus.
Klaus loser.
And if you want to know a bit more about Klaus being the punching bag, then I really recommend watching my whole video all about it, which I've linked in my description. Anyway, Klaus then tattles on Rogu.
He's supposed to be helping with Roger's personas. Roger! Rogu isn't doing his job!
Which is probably because he's far too busy pretending to be Haley. And this bit did get a huge laugh out of me.
Rogu is allowed to eat as much raw pasta as he wants.
Rogu, I know you wrote that last part.
This was our first proper look at Rogu since his initial introduction, and I have to say that it did help me like him a little bit better. We got to see his individuality, and he was given a fair few funny lines.
Rogu, everything's a joke to you, and I don't mind that.
Although I still wasn't entirely sure if he was a necessary addition by this point. But hey, maybe his next appearance will change my mind. In the hand that rocks the Rogu, he gets his first proper spotlight episode, and because he's barely in this season, the writers decided to add this in just to catch the casual viewers up.
Rogu, maybe. Rogu, my baby. Probably heard the rumor that he used to be my tumor. He's Rogu, my baby. He's here!
We learn that when Roger needs his insides to be empty for his hooker persona, he hides Rogu in the bath.
Rogu is daddy.
And realizing this probably isn't the best place to keep an impressionable baby alien tumor, he asks Steve to babysit. And luckily, there's only 3 rules to remember when looking after Rogu.
Absolutely no candy, no screen time, and don't let him look at my ant farm.
But Steve finds that he just can't say no to that cute little face, and he lets him have some candy. But much like a Mogwai, he shoots out 2 more Rogus. And things go from bad to worse when the Rogus discover candy worms, and soon enough, there's now dozens of them running about. And then Klaus breaks rule number 2 by showing them all a YouTube video, and they start combining to form one giant Rogu, which is basically going from a Gremlins to a Honey I Blew Up the Kids parody. Are there any other 90s kids that absolutely love that movie? So, Rogu goes on a rampage throughout town to get to the stadium's big screen, and on the way, he shoves a car right up his arse. Like father, like son, eh?
Oh, I taught him that.
Luckily, Steve manages to distract Rogu using Roger's lullaby, luring him to a giant boat ride which slowly rocks him to sleep, where he then returns to normal. And just when it looks like everything is fixed and over, the CIA rocks up and abducts Rogu. And no joke, I literally spat out my drink at this line.
Rogu!
No, boy whose name I didn't catch.
Steve tracks them down, but it's too late. The group had already blended poor Rogu up and ate him. But it's not all lost because Steve is able to play a YouTube video causing Rogu's remains to burst out and combine together in a pretty gnarly scene that I can't show on YouTube. Oh yeah, and just before this episode ends, Rogu eats shellfish and transforms into a fire-breathing dragon. So there's that. Okay, so I actually really liked this episode. There's a lot of great Rogu moments here. Overall though, I feel like we really needed to see more of Roger's and Rogu's relationship here to help really flesh him out, because outside of a few brief scenes, they haven't interacted too much at all, and he is his freaking tumor. And personally, I'd have liked to have seen how Roger takes to fatherhood because, well, let's face it, being a role model is something he definitely ain't. But annoyingly, just when I thought that they were starting to integrate Rogu a bit more into the cast, he disappears. Again. He doesn't appear again until midway through the next season in episode 17's Roger Needs D. And even then, he only appears at the very end and doesn't talk. What gives? What is the point in forgetting him only to bring him back for, well, this? In fact, he barely has a presence at all in season 15.
That's cousin Rogu. He's from Denver.
Saying all this though, maybe they were gearing up for his bigger role in the season finale 300. Maybe. Let's see. So when Roger is cut up into 300 pieces and scattered, Rogu helps the Smiths relocate his body parts.
Daddy's ear.
But aside from that, he doesn't really contribute much else.
You know what they say, butthole always last place you look.
Which is disappointing because it felt like the writers were finally making an effort to include him more in the storylines and the family, only to completely give that up. And honestly, it is really hard to like a character that's barely around. It just makes Rogu feel like an afterthought. But you know what, at least the writers seem to realise this, because in the following season, he gets a proper spotlight episode. In season 16, episode 5, the family go on a trip to Dude Ranch, and Klaus is less than pleased that Rogu is tagging along.
My hat! My spot! He's taking all my things!
And when Rogu starts upstaging him at everything, Klaus gets jealous and plots to get rid of him. And he does this by cutting free Stan's beloved donkey, Tequila Joe, and attempts to pin it on Rogu. Of course, this plan backfires when Klaus and Rogu are sent out into the wild to find the donkey, and it's here that we find that Rogu can actually talk quite fast.
Plus, Rogu talks slow, charm pants off ladies.
And honestly, I really hope they kept this up because his slowed speech could get really grating. So they find the donkey, but it kicks them both into a river and they fall off a cliff, and it's Rogu that saves Klaus.
Klaus do same for Rogu.
Maybe.
We also learn here that Rogu and Billy are like really close friends.
Oh, where are you, my sweet Rogu?
Seriously, if you do want to see that Billy deep dive, then just let me know in the comments. So out in the wilderness, and Rogu actually saves Klaus again from an eagle and a mountain lion. The two even start to bond, and we get a deeper, more valuable look into Rogu and his character.
Rogu like duck. Calm on surface, but under, furiously paddling.
And also how he sees himself amongst the Smith family.
When Rogu get to Smith's, Rogu see Klaus have place.
It looks like the two of them then become friends, and they even give each other nicknames.
Rogu, you gotta start calling me K-Money.
But when Rogu falls into a mine shaft, Klaus abandons him.
Hey, buddy!
When Klaus makes it back to the Smiths, he lies about Rogu, and at first Roger seems totally nonplussed that his poor baby is dead.
I can't believe Rogu's gone. Ow, we'll have a bar crawl in his honor.
But when Klaus finally comes clean, Roger warns him that Rogu will be out for revenge and nothing will stop him. And that's when Rogu rides into town and shoots everyone in the D.
That's Rogu. He loves shooting people in the nuts. He's not wrong, it's funny.
And yeah, he may look kinda cute, but you don't want to get on the wrong side of Rogu. He's crazy. But before he takes everyone out, he offers Klaus an ultimatum. Give himself up or he'll kill everybody, and Klaus selflessly gives himself up. And right before Rogu kills him, a mountain lion leaps out and attacks him, and instead of leaving him to die like last time, Klaus saves him. And rather than killing Klaus, Rogu roasts him instead.
But where Klaus dick? Rogu need magnifying glass to find.
And so the two finally patch things up. Now, this episode was a much better look into Rogu's personality, and I actually really liked it. I also thought that Rogu was very funny in it. I'm not gonna lie, his voice is still a little annoying, but at least it's sped up a bit, therefore making it a bit more bearable. I also liked that while he does bust Klaus's balls, at least he's actually nice to him.
Rogu look up to Klaus.
And I feel like they could be a really fun pairing and have a great dynamic. But much like before, just when I was starting to warm up to him, he's pretty much relegated into the background again, because after this episode, Rogu only appears in a further 4 episodes in the season, only really appearing sporadically in a scene or 2. But at least we learn that he collects the family's poop for science experiments, so there's that. It's so obvious that the writers had no idea what to do with him. I mean, in one episode, he's just rubbing Roger's head. Take him out of most of these scenes and nothing will be missed. Saying this though, I don't want to dismiss that his appearances do increase to around 8 episodes in the following season. But again, that's not saying much because in episode 2, he doesn't even talk, and in the others, he barely contributes again. Honestly, blink and you miss him. Unfortunately, this continues into season 18 where he only appears in 6 episodes, and it's just more of the same, with Rogu only really saying a random line here or there, no particular standout moments, and no scenes where he really shines.
Rogu puppet sweet.
Rogu, shoo!
And yeah, that quote pretty much sums up his existence. In season 18's finale, Into the Jingleverse, he does have a couple of lines and drives a snowmobile to pick up the Smiths from the North Pole. And as for the latest season, Rogu has appeared twice so far, and both times contributed absolutely nothing. So what gives? Do the writers just randomly forget about poor Rogu? No, I don't think so. I believe that they simply don't know what to do with him. I think that when they first introduced him, they were intending to show off Roger's more parental and softer side by giving him a kid, or a tumour, and aside from a couple of instances, they did kinda drop the ball on that one. Seriously, you would have thought that this could have opened up countless potential storylines. Maybe Roger could have a competition with Stan on who could be the best father, or Rogu could help solve a case with Wheels and the Leg Man. And hell, just like Roger, Rogu too could live his own life outside of the Smith family with a bunch of personas that the family doesn't even know about. Saying all this though, it might not be totally over for Rogu, because I did find out about an upcoming episode called The Sickness, and the description on the American Dad fandom page reads as follows. When Rogu comes down with a potential fatal illness, it's up to the family to save him as doctors. But who's gonna bet that he immediately disappears again right afterwards? And so we come back to my original 2 questions. Do I like Rogu? And was he just a needless addition? And my answer to both is yes. In my opinion, he was a completely unneeded addition to an already pretty large group of characters. Did we really need another alien? And definitely not one that speaks in a slow, drawn-out kind of way with broken sentences. Now, some have argued that Rogu is the child trope added to aging comedies, like Scrappy-Doo or Poof in the Fairly OddParents. And yeah, I can totally see why people would think that, but unlike those shows, American Dad was still top of its game, so I don't really know why the writers decided to add him in. Honestly, I wouldn't have really minded if they actually utilised his character more consistently, because in the rare spotlight episodes that he does have, like I've said before, I really liked him. I loved how he was the sadistic little monster that you won't want to piss off, and he did have a few memorable lines. But at the end of the day, his sporadic appearances killed any momentum that he had. But what do you think of Rogu? Do you love him? Do you hate him? Do you want him back? What spotlight episode would you like him to have? Let me know in the comments below.